So hello everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. My name is Anna Gonzalez and I'm with the Texas Technology Access Program or TTAP. And I'm also with my colleague Nico and Shannon will be joining us shortly. Today I'll be helping lead our TAMALES meeting, which stands for the Texas Assistive Technology Makers Alliance. Um, what we're really about is just bringing people together who are interested in creating, modifying, or exploring assistive technology, especially through maker tools like 3D printing. Before we jump in, I wanted to share a quick highlight for one of our big events this year. So our conference Viva la Vida with AT is our annual statewide assistive technology conference, and it's happening October 28th and 29th here in Austin. It includes presentations and exhibit hall with the latest tech and also a makerspace. So that's always a really fun and interactive part of our conference. So if you're interested in AT, making or just connecting with others in the space, definitely keep that on your radar. And just a quick reminder, Tamales meets every third Tuesday of the month from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Our next meeting will be April 21st, and you'll see the rest of the days listed here. We'll um, continue with this schedule through the end of the year, and then we'll revisit that again in January. So we'd love to keep seeing you all regularly, and that's how our community grows. And our mission with Tamales is to build a Texas-wide maker network that supports and includes people with disabilities. So we really focus on collaboration, bringing together different backgrounds like clinicians, engineers, educators, and community members. So just design solutions that promote independence overall. And one thing we always like to highlight is that assistive technology is everywhere. So it's not just high-tech devices, it can be anything that helps someone live more independently. And that could be communication tools, it could be sensory supports, writing and reading tools, or even things used in daily living or recreation. And here's what we got planned for today. So today's agenda will start with some new connections. And then we'll share a really cool project, Tom and the 3D printed restroom map. Then we'll go over some new resources and then wrap up with tech intel. So a nice mix of learning and sharing today. All right, if you're new here, we'd love to get to know you. So feel free to share what part of Texas you're from, or if you're even from Texas, how you heard about us, your favorite maker tool, or a maker goal that you have. So feel free to drop that in the chat. No pressure with that. Or you can also unmute and yeah. So we have Ken Hackbarths from Denver, Colorado via Shannon. Let's see who else. Sumit, am I saying that correctly? From Austin? Yes. Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining. Tom, would you like to do a quick intro?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find the chat on my phone. One sec.
No, you're fine. We're just doing a brief intro to like where you're located, how did you hear about us, and your favorite.
Yes, I was just trying to figure out the chat. Okay, so my name is Tom Babinski from the Cleveland, Ohio area, and I'm from Even Grants. That's my small business, and I primarily do accessible 3D design and production.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We're
you.
glad to have you.
And thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you for joining.
Hey, Tom, when you get a chance, I'd love to hear what 3D accessible design and implementation means.
Oh yeah, that's coming up.
I think let's save it for that little presentation, and I'll
All right,
definitely dive
sorry.
into that. But a good question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. I think that everyone else is our regulars, so and if you wanted to put that in the chat too for the people who regularly come for our newcomers, feel free to do that too. See the next slide. Okay, so I wanted to highlight Open Path Mobility Foundation. So they're an Austin-based maker group doing some really awesome work in adaptive mobility and partnering with Make Good. And let's see, this is just one of our local makers. Let's see if I can show you their page. So they're just a nonprofit creating toddler mobility trainers and prosthetic covers. And actually, the founder is interested in joining us. So hopefully soon we'll be able to learn more about them. Okay. All right. So let's introduce Tom, and I will hand it off to him. Okay, Tom, so go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Anna, can you please remind me approximately how much time do I have?
I would say as much time as you would need, probably about 15-20 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Yes, good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Babinski, and I was introduced to this team through Anna and Shannon as I was advertising my new product on LinkedIn. Don't worry, this is not a sales pitch, um, but I need to go back a few years just to put everything into perspective. Uh, I generally don't start with this, but I think for all practical purposes, this is going to be relevant. I am completely blind, and I was born blind. And because of that, my business was born. Early on, as early as I was a teenager, I had to start advocating for myself, and then later, I started helping others to advocate for themselves, and that's how the interest in accessibility started. I've been in digital accessibility for more than 25 years, and started my company, Even Grants, in 2023. Actually, restarted it. It existed at some point before that. But there came the time when everybody was laid off in digital accessibility, and what looked like a great idea all of a sudden became a very difficult venture. And what became 3D, accessible 3D design and production was basically one, an accident, and two, a failed business idea. The accident was that I've been traveling a lot, and I was very interested about understanding what buildings look like. So every time I went somewhere, the first trip led to the gift store, even before I visited the building, if they have a replica of a particular building that I visited. And for the most part, they didn't. So one day I had a ton of time, and then I hired a 3D designer to create a few 3D um, buildings for me from the Washington, D.C. area. Washington, D.C., because I lived there for about 10 years, and it sounded like a good idea. Then I hired a company to print out those buildings, and I was very happy because now I understood what different things look like the Pentagon and the White House and the Smithsonian Castle, and so on and so forth. So I showed it to a few blind friends, and they said, "Oh, wonderful, make some more." So I made some more. What should I do with it? Well, I put it on Etsy and eBay, and I started selling it. And well, nobody bought it. That was the business failure. So I called my friends back. Look, guys, you told me to make some more. Oh yeah, we want to touch it, but we don't want to take it home because they are too big. And then I started thinking, all right, well, it doesn't make sense if I make two, but you don't want to store 50 of those. Actually, I have approximately 80 buildings in my house right now, but the reason is that this is now my business, so I had to find a space for them. But I see their point. When it's too small, you can't really feel what it's like. When it's large enough to have a good tactile experience, there's only so much you can store. And I started thinking, okay, what would be a good experience for my blind friends to actually touch these buildings, understand what they look like, remember it, and go home without it. And there came the idea, museums. That's what museums do. Um, they show it to people, and then you can leave it there. And there's the added advantage that you can make it even bigger because you don't have to carry it, you don't have to mail it. And that's how my 3D design and other consulting started in the museum industry. I currently service mostly the travel and tourism industry for the most part. And then we started making maps, geographic maps for schools. I'm working with a Clovernook school for the a blind and visual Clovernook Center for the blind and visually impaired. And we make a bunch of geography maps, and then we send 3D printers to Africa so schools for the blind can print it out. And then we started making biology tools, like human organs, like the liver and the heart and lungs. And now basically, you can throw anything at me. For the most part, we're going to make it in 3D. Okay, but what's accessible about it, right? Um, you may wonder, what did I invent here? There's millions of products you can download from online. There's hundreds of thousands of people doing 3D design all around the world. What's special? Well, here's what's special, because ultimately I ended up buying my 3D printer, and I thought, all right, I have the whole world open to me. I'm just going to download all those things. And the shocking surprise came that I spent 5, 10 hours printing out big things, and turned out that that's not what I expected. It was either good or not too good, or it looked nice, but it wasn't a good tactile experience. So then I started thinking, what is it that we do so that when I hand it to a blind person, it will actually make sense? And that's the tactile 3D design. So I hired some designers. Currently, I work with 5 designers. We pick buildings or objects to replicate that may be interesting or feasible. I mean, we can make anything, right? But the problem is that there's only a certain size that we can work with. So if the building is too large, then all of a sudden the individual details will be so small that you can't really feel it. So we're trying to look at smaller buildings, or when we look at larger buildings, then we create the entire building, and then we make smaller parts of it or individual components, like the main door or one of the windows or one of the corners or interesting parts of the wall. And the next thing that we do is, I will admit, is we cheat a little bit, because sometimes when I scale it down exactly to what it would be at a particular scale, then certain things will not be enjoyable. Let me give you an example. If there's like a railing, or there's a statue or a pole in front of the building, and I scale it down to, let's say, in a medium-sized building, a 1 to 300 scale, that is going to be so thin that the first person who touches it will break off. Now, for sighted people who want to print it out, put it on a bookshelf, and enjoy it from the far, that's beautiful. But for me, that's already a lost cause, because I can only show it to one person, and then that's the end of the story. So we need to create these items in a way that they're going to be sturdy enough for showing. They're not going to be too upscaled or downscaled and over exaggerated, that it's not necessarily showing the real experience. And sometimes we need to augment and enhance certain features. For example, I'm finding that windows or doors on buildings, for if I download it from online, they look beautifully, but it's not really a good tactile experience. And the little window frames and window seals, we need to slightly just a touch augment it. Or, for example, when the wall has an interesting brick structure, we can augment that slightly, so that can be a tactile experience. And then obviously, am I going to put 20,000 bricks on that wall? Absolutely not. So we kind of show you the pattern of what it may feel like when you touched it. So it's a little bit of art, a little bit of science that we need to combine. And then we started making maps and floor maps. Um, what I'm finding is the difficulty with the 2D maps is that it takes a little memorization, and there's only so much you can put on it because you have to figure out, okay, this texture or this pattern will mean this, like stairs or elevators or hallways, and you have to learn it. But then I figured if I make a 3D printed floor map, then I can put it all on the map. So, for example, if I have we create floor plans for conference sites. So usually they take place in a hotel or a hotel lobby, and then we put little stairs in there. You don't have to remember how we indicate stairs because it's going to be in 3D. You touch it, you know it's steps. I don't need to tell you what's a door because as you follow along, you will find that there are little rooms, maybe even room numbers in it, and then there's this little entrance and there's a door. You can even tell which direction it opens, and there's a door. And similarly, we could do the check-in counter, even the sofa. We had a little fun with this, and we even made little pillows on the sofa. But that was a little out of hand. But sometimes we like to have a good time with my designers. And then something came up that I don't even understand why it hasn't even been solved. And that's the problem of using restrooms. I'll try to be very subtle about this explanation here, but I think we just need to say certain things that, should I put it, by the time you found what you're looking for, you don't feel like using it because so many restrooms are dirty. And I was wondering, what if I didn't have to touch so many things? What if I could just, like a sighted person, walk up to what I need and not worry about what I don't need? So we created a 3D replica of a restroom. Somebody told me earlier today that it looks almost like a dollhouse. I never thought about it that way, but it kind of does. For those of you who are able to see, here's a sample. So here's the 3D printed restroom. On the top and the bottom, there's a map key. So if you handed this to me without any kind of a background, I maybe wouldn't know what it is. Because as a blind person, I get to touch much less stuff than a sighted person would look at pictures. So when I showed it to my kids, they're sighted kids, they immediately know, oh, that's a restroom. I don't know if I would know, but if it was put into context. So, for example, when I was looking for the ADA sign and I found that this is the men's room that I want to use, I would have no other choice but to bump into this map beside the sign that shows me the layout of the restroom. So, even if I wouldn't be able to read Braille, I would understand most of the objects. So, here, for example, on the bottom, there's something that kind of feels like a toilet with a little tank behind it. We even put a little button on the left of the tank. This is where you flush it, so that you don't have to wipe down the entire tank and wall just to find out that you don't have to flush it. You only have to step back, and it's automatic. So if there's no button, then it's automatic. And then here's the other toilet. And here in this toilet, you have a little roll. It kind of reminds you of the paper, the toilet paper. In the other one, this is an accessible restroom with the grab bars, and you can feel the door in front of it that it opens outwards. So you can tell it's an accessible restroom. Here's the sink. It kind of feels like a sink. In the middle, there's the faucet. On the right side, there's the soap. Um, so for the most part, even if you don't read Braille, you can figure out what's what. On the right, just beside the exit, there's a little square. That's how we indicated the trash can. Now we only put stuff on the restrooms which are fixed. So if it's a movable trash can, we don't put it in there because it could move anywhere else. But so even if you didn't figure out that this little square means a trash can, um, as you're walking out, chances are you're gonna at least kick into it because they located it pretty inconveniently for mobility purposes, but conveniently in a sense that you know where you can leave the trash if you need to. Right. So I would say a good 80% of this restroom is understandable for anybody who doesn't read Braille. And if you read Braille, on the bottom, there's an entire map key, so you can read exactly what's what. Now, what was most interesting to me as I started advertising this product, many people got back to me and said, wait a second, it's not even just for blind people. Think about people who are neurodiverse and going into a dirty public restroom, just the thought itself causes anxiety. What if they could familiarize themselves with the entire layout and then go in there knowing where they can find something? It could be very important for parents with kids who need to use a restroom. There's no point taking a little kid in there just to find out that you don't have what you're looking for. But if you could see it right at the door, you would know, okay, this is the one for us, or no, we need to keep looking for something that's more usable for us. It's printed black on white. No, sorry, white on black, and so specifically made high contrast. So if you have some vision, but not enough vision to comfortably get around in that restroom, that can be helpful to you. So I'm kind of finding out that it has potentially more uses than I thought.
Hey,
So
Tom, if I could
yes,
just interrupt
I
from
I am done. That's all I have for
oh,
you for
oh,
today.
yeah,
Thank you.
great. Uh, you said that's printed white on black. Is that one solid object that's printed all together?
Yes,
And I assume it's printed flat with the black side down, and
yes,
which just makes me ask the question, what is the quality of the braille?
good enough.
Okay,
It's not paper quality, but it's very readable. We are printing it flat exactly because if we printed this
right.
vertically, the object would be too big, and then you would have to start thinking about putting support there,
Right.
removing the support, and then the object would look much worse than the Braille looks now.
And
I'm yeah,
is that all FDM printed then, or are you using a, and what is your layer height?
0 0.2.
Oh, okay, some pretty gross layer height.
Yeah, it's pretty generic. I have a bamboo P1P printer that I printed on. I also have a 3D printing partner who does some of the work for me, and they're using the same layer
Okay.
height.
I didn't know if you'd be tempted to go with a really small layer height to try and improve the quality of the braille.
For what it's worth here, no. For other purposes, maybe yes. But this braille is pretty readable. Let me put it this way. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting braille on paper from reputable organizations, which don't even come close to what I 3D print here.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I have some other questions generally I'd like to ask you, but I'll wait till other people have a chance to
Sure.
ask their questions. And if there are no other questions, I'll just jump in.
Yeah, does anyone else have any other questions, comments for Tom?
All right, I'm going to
So
assume,
Ken,
hey, I'm going to assume you didn't just pop up in order to ask a question. So I'm going to go ahead and ask. Um, so I have been approached by people in the past saying, I know an architect or a mechanical engineer or structural engineer. They all have experience with either drafting or CAD, and they recently became blind, and they are struggling to continue to do the work that they have done all their life, but because they cannot evaluate their own work as they're doing the design, as they're making changes, what can these people do? And the the my initial thinking was always, well, at least on the input side, you have hope because there are text-based coding CAD tools. So you could use just
Right.
a plain old screen reader to do your design. But when you're trying to evaluate whether your design is valid or any change you make achieves what you were hoping to make, then there's the struggle. You either have to call somebody else in to evaluate your work. And so I was wondering if are you doing the CAD yourself? How are you evaluating your work as you go?
So I don't do any of the design myself. I have 5 designers. I select people who are very good 3D designers, and I teach them accessible design. And so basically, what I do is um, I give them the ideas and I do the quality assurance part of it just to make sure that everything turned out the way it turns out. But they are creating the printables for me.
So
Having said that, yeah,
your quality assurance is once it's printed.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, generally after I work with them for a while, I would feel comfortable not even QAing it because they know how to do it themselves. But it definitely takes a few months until we get to that point because there's always that little surprise. Now, so you can programmatically design something, but the problem with a 3D design when you're completely blind or you don't at least have any usable vision is so what do you design? You design something that you already understand. But what do you need? You need what you don't understand yet, therefore you don't know how to design it. So that's the catch 22. You can still make a ton of really good and useful things for yourself, and you can prototype a bunch of stuff. But when it comes to the complexity of buildings and working off of different pictures, I don't think AI is just there yet. And I find that I need sighted assistance or intervention. Now, speaking of architects, it's interesting that you bring this up because I work a lot with, not work a lot, but communicate a lot with architects. I actually joined a souvenir buildings collector society. Yes, there is such a thing. People collect souvenir buildings, a few hundred of them, and they are mostly architects. So I got some really good feedback from them. And also, I met a couple of people just recently who have been architects. One of them has a little bit of functional vision left, and the other person is practically completely blind. And they figured out for the most part how to work around it. They're using some 3D technology, some tactile graphics, some other maker equipment. So my suggestion would be that I have some general tricks, or I can make anything for an architect with my designers. But if somebody needs actual hands-on assistance on how to go around it, I would be very happy to introduce them to my contacts and they could tell them how their uh, daily work happens.
Okay. So I wasn't specifically thinking of AI prompting to create 3D objects, more around programmable interfaces. Like there are tools that use a programming language to do 3D
Yes.
modeling, and they're purely text based. I mean, it is a coding language, but it's text.
Yeah, I use OpenSCAD,
Okay, that's
right?
specifically the
So
one I
so
was
that's
thinking of.
that's fine if you can as long as you can keep it in your head
Right.
what you are building and obviously you can annotate it so you don't have to remember everything, but to some extent you kind of have to have a mental picture
Yep.
of what you are putting together and then rinse and repeat sometimes. I made a few things for myself here and there, and some are really not even advanced. It's just an idea. I had I think I had like 10 pounds of quarters, and I had to return it to the bank, and I had to put it into those paper sleeves. and I wasn't going to count 40 at a time. So I created this little tube that was just as tall as 40 quarters, fill the quarters, right, and then put it into the sleeve. Little did I know that there could be enough wear and tear, and as a coin collector, I should have thought about it, that certain instances when the coins are, all of them are so worn, the tube will hold 41, but I would rather give more to the bank than give them less and then get in trouble.
I'm sure the bank feels the same way about you. They'd rather
I
give you
know,
more.
I
Yeah.
know.
But so yeah, so OpenSCAD, for example, is a coding tool, and yeah, if you structure your code well enough, you can go to the area that's likely to be the
Yeah.
source of the issue or where you want to make a change. But the problem is on the output side, and I assume you're familiar with those pin-based interfaces where they'll
Yes.
have 256 pins by 256 pins, and I just wonder if anyone has given any thought to improving the resolution of those kinds of things to make that a reasonable interface for displaying these models.
You can do that. We experimented a little bit with that. There's a graphical tool and I can't recall the name. It does something like that. It's like with magnets, you can bring up those little um balls. I also use a regular Braille graphic printer for outlining concepts. Yeah, there are certain things. I think what's really needed right now is so that we could look at STL files and understand how an individual layer looks like and quickly switch amongst them. I try to use the Monarch display for that, but unfortunately the software is not advanced enough that I could quickly switch layer by layer, but I have to load the individual files that basically ruins a concept because you kind of want to hold your hand at one place and then push one button and then get the next layer and the next layer. That would make sense. So there's lots of room for innovation. But
Okay.
I think those drivers need to be a little more developed. Um, I know some experiments and projects that are working on it. I'm currently not authorized to give you information, but I can assure you we can't wait to release it. And then once it's out there, we're gonna make sure that everybody has it. But unfortunately, it's not at the stage where we could show anything, even as a beta concept.
Okay. And I'll just expose my age a little bit here. Back when I was taking drafting classes, in high school, we didn't have 3D representations. Well, you could make a 3D representation, but most everything was, I can't remember if it's called orthographic projections or something, where you would
Yes.
have three different views of the same object. And with enough practice, and every draftsman had to have that practice, you could envision what the 3D object looked like just from these three separate views, front, back, side, top, something like that. Uh,
Yes, and that is correct. However, the understanding of the different projections of a building, for example, will be very different if you have the experience of being able to see, whether you can see now or you were sighted before, versus somebody who's completely blind. There are some projects which are working on that, and there's the 3DM tool made by Troy Deck that you could use, and that does something similar to that. So, for example, instead of printing out the entire thing, I can just print out the different projections as a flatter model and get a sense in an hour or two, as opposed to having to print something out for 10, 15, 20 hours. So that's helpful. But like, how much more involved is that than just looking at the screen and immediately understanding what's there. I know that we're not gonna get there. If you can't see, then you can't see. So it will be a little more time consuming. But how do we bring this time down to reasonable so that somebody can understand the concept without having to print out some of it?
okay.
I'll be the first to admit I don't have the answers for most things because we're playing, we're experimenting, we're trying to figure out, we're making so many mistakes. You know, the first geography map we made, it was version 34, where I was comfortable enough to release it. Today it's version 2, right? So, and that's just that we don't have enough guidelines, we don't have enough standardizations, we don't have enough common knowledge that we could build from. We don't have enough resources. Many things we have to figure out on our own just to find out later on that our neighbor figured it out the same time, the same way, but maybe came up with something even better. So there's lots of moving parts here that we need to work together to figure out.
And I assume you're tied into whether or not there are international standards bodies around this kind of thing?
Yes. Standards, no guidelines. Yes, the Australia New Zealand Accessible Graphics Group, ANZAG, ANZAGG, has a set of guidelines. Um, it's a start. If you're familiar with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, think WCAG 1.0. You know, when there was something, but it had room to improve. So it's more like a little bit of a guideline, bit of a set of references. They've done an amazing job. There's no question about it. But I think we have a lot more to work on.
Well, it sounds like there's room for you to contribute to those bodies.
I'm trying. I try to join as many mailing lists and meetings and standards and guideline bodies as much as possible so that I can learn and contribute and somehow make a difference. But it's a slow process.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for the good questions.
Anyone else? Any comments, questions for Tom?
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
I was late, so I apologize, but I think you brought in some really important concepts, and I don't think any of us have all the answers, which is why we like coming together on these monthly meetings, and we record it so that all of these questions will go out to other members of our team who can't be here today. I know it's spring break in Texas, and we've got a lot of school-based groups that participate. And then we're also trying to get a lot of our school tech programs to start understanding some of these concepts right from the beginning of their design so that everyone is always included in what we are doing. So we appreciate your insight, and I hope you continue to join our group meetings because we're always on the third Tuesday of every month. Whenever you can, if you're out and about and you can join us, because your insight, you've got like Ken and Brian here are both on the engineering side. You've got Anna and I, Nico, we're all, and Kylan, we're more on that therapist, provider side. And then you bring that individual who's blind, but also you have knowledge of some of the building processes. And so by working together, I think we're much stronger. And then we can together answer some of the questions with our different points of view. So anyway, that's what we're all about
Yeah,
is
thank
building.
you. Thank you. And I appreciate the invitation. And I definitely would like to join here and there as time permits. And as we discussed earlier, I'm going to submit my presentation for the conference. I'm still just wrapping up with all the contacts that you helped me to, so I better understand what people really need, and I'm going to put in my paper. And other than that, I'm happy to make any connections and just across the different groups that I'm a part of, because I think that's going to be the real solution ultimately, when we all know the real key players in the industry. So we either have somebody to learn from, or spread the word to people who want to learn.
Thank you. All right, we'll turn it back
Thank
over
you.
to Anna to flip the slides.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I also shared the link to his website if you wanted to look at that in the chat. And moving on to new resources and
All right. So
yeah.
Anna and I are always like searching for resources to share as a component of our meetings. And so this first one I'm going to put in the chat. They are, especially for some of our maker groups that are trying to set up how to set guides. This is from Virginia Commonwealth University, and they've put together some just simple creative design guides. And so it's meant like there's one for 3D printing, video projects, textiles. And remember, we're more than just 3D printing. We're really looking at global fabrication. So the first one is just giving you some examples of other guides that you could model off. Don't ever reinvent the wheel. We always want to build better, not reinvent. And sometimes reinventing is necessary. The next one is a shower wheelchair pattern. And so people don't think about it, but when I work in rehab, people don't want to ruin their regular wheelchair, but you don't want to invest in another whole wheelchair. So this is a really nice functional pattern. Let me put this in the chat of an uh, wheelchair that you can make. And I'd love to see maker groups and especially schools start making some of these. Many schools have swimming programs just to have them available. So this is a wheelchair that you can make that's totally waterproof. And it's meant to be like if you had a swimming pool, getting someone in and out of a pool. I'd love to see hotels have them. Um, and at a much lower cost. So that's one of the resources we have. And then the next resource is my favorite because I do a lot of work. I'm starting to do a lot more work with the schools. And let me put this link in. And these are just to give people some ideas of some of the available projects that are out there. And so I like this because you've got specific projects, an obstacle detecting walking stick. So they're using simple technology. Ken would know the names of these technologies more than I do. Obstacle detecting glasses, refreshable braille displays. And these are just emerging projects that students can start on. I've got a really cute story to tell. My my great nephew's 10 years old, and he came to visit last week for spring break. And I taught him how to make a switch adapted toy. And I have a feeling he's going to go and break all of his younger siblings' toys now that I've showed him how to do it. But we literally took some toys from Goodwill and I showed him how to drill into the plastic, put the wires in, we put the monojack in. I showed him how to solder. And this is a 10-year-old little boy that just went to town with this kind of technology. And so all of these projects on this Science Buddies site are some that we can start showing our emerging engineers in some of these STEM programs. I will be doing a presentation with Dr. Lee for the Houston area service center, and we're targeting project-based learning for students in STEM programs that are targeting assistive technology. And these are some of the resources that I'm going to share. So I just think that this is a really neat resource with like make a pill dispenser, make a fall detector with some of this emerging technology and the instructions to get those ideas flowing so that as we were talking with Tom earlier, it gets the word out, it gets these kids to start thinking about it much earlier, so it just becomes what we do. And then once you get some of the standards that Tom would be working on, we can start teaching the kids these before they ever even leave high school, so that by the time they go to college, it's just what we do. And so that's kind of what my ultimate goal is in regards to looking at these kinds of resources. So those are just resources for you to look, and they've all been put in the Padlet. We're always updating that Padlet. We probably need you all to help us give feedback to organize it a little bit better, because it's getting a little messy, but that's one of the things that we're going to be working on moving forward.
We
So
also
it's going
have a link, sorry, Shannon, that Ken shared in the chat, and I'm opening it right now. It says the Learn and Try tool. Ken, I don't know if you want to touch on that a little
I
bit.
just want to put out a little plug for these folks. This was developed by the people at raisingthefloor.org, and it's just a collection of largely software tools to make what they say explore tools that could make computers accessible and easier to use. And it's I believe all open source or free tools. And so as a front page to getting access to a bunch of different tools to try them and then use them if appropriate. What made this special, these guys made a presentation at a conference in Canada, and it's an amazing interface just for searching for what you may need. It's all, I don't know if you've heard the term before, they did this all via vibe coding. Nobody who did this knows how to code. So they used AI tools to create the user interface and the data storage. And I think what they did is they did an incredible job of first documenting what they wanted very clearly so the AI could give them what they wanted. Again, just amazing to me that tool is there. It's free to use. And 3 or 4 people, non-coders, put it together.
And it's got that link to Morphic, and Morphic is Greg Vanderheiden's project, and he's been a leader in the field of assistive technology since the early 70s, probably even 60s. So that's kind of cool. I like seeing that they have Morphic on there.
Thank you for sharing, Ken.
All right. And on the next one, these are some articles, and we're always looking at sharing articles. And I'm trying not to totally focus on schools, because our goal as Tamales is not just school-based makers, but also community maker groups. But these 3 actually do tend to lean more towards those high school maker groups. I am starting to send the Texas Education Agency STEM and CTE representatives bi-monthly updates on things going around in the state, because ultimately I'd love to see an assistive technology strand in our STEM and CTE programs, just so that it is what we do. And so these are just some articles showing what other students have done. So the first one was how a high school student made a Braille keyboard for only $10. And it goes through, it kind of just talks about their process, but it doesn't have their actual plans. But I bet if we reach out, which is going to be my goal next month, to see if we can't get that information. And then the next article, it talks more about that inclusion. So especially coming from like having Tom here, we want to make sure that it's not just people trying to do good. It's about really building a culture where we're all included in this, and we're getting everyone's perspective so that we're making a real difference for the people that the equipment is meant to serve. And then finally, it's EdTech magazine. It's talking about the use of AI and assistive technology. So these are just 3 articles that will all be added to the Padlet that I just wanted you to be aware of. And then we'll go ahead and move forward. And now we have Tech Intel, and I'll turn it over to Nico.
Yes, I brought my little puppy Bagel to talk about y'all about tech tell and see what you guys are working on. So
Nico, is that your puppy?
it's my partner's puppy.
Okay. I was going to say that looks a lot different than your puppy. Okay.
Yeah, he's about like maybe 6 times less the size.
A little handheld. Kylan, are you doing any work lately? Did you see that your name is still on the university door where you left in Missouri?
Right, that's right. I did see that. I got a kick out of that. Thanks. No, I did just recently publish my systematic review on 3D printed assistive technology and the associated outcomes. So that was a big goal of mine for this year. Let me my laptop here. I'll put it in the chat. It's open access, so everyone should be able to read it for free. And we could put that on Padlet if you are interested.
I'm definitely interested, and it'll be on there by tonight.
Great. But otherwise, Bill and I finished up a 3D printed assistive technology intervention study in ALS clinics, and we're about to get that one submitted for publication too. So I'll be happy to share that once we're finished there too.
And then Dr. Lee is going to meet with Bill because he wants the TXRX, which is the Maker Lab in Houston. It's a very large Maker Lab. They want to do some work with that robotic arm with their students. So Dr. Lee is all ready to move forward with having his students make some of those and start experimenting with it.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a good meeting then. Hopefully that's helpful.
Do you want us to invite you and Bill and Hope come, or you don't have the time?
Feel free to send me the details. I'm teaching a lot the second half of the semester, but I can see if it's a time I could come.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Nico. Sorry.
Anyone else got anything that they're working on?
Yeah, I'll follow up real quick based on what Kyle Ann just submitted. I'm putting together a paper to support my belief that 3D printed key guards are the holy grail of DIY assistive technology. I've completed 20 interviews with various people who are doing it, and I'm getting some help from ChatGPT to think through the interviews and how to best present them. But I think there's a really good case, and I already made this presentation once at that Canada conference. I'm going to turn it into a paper. Hey, maybe in the future I can have you reference me, Kyle Ann.
Great. Do you know where you're submitting to?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It kind of depends on how formal I want to get with my paper, whether I just whether I want it to be something that has 3 pages of citations and references, or whether I just want to be able to get the survey results out.
Sure, absolutely. Well, one thing that you might consider, ATIA has a journal they publish once a year, I believe, and they have different voices sections. And so they have one, I don't remember exactly what they call it, but it's something like Voices from the Field or something like that. And so that journal specifically publishes non-academics in every issue. So that might be something to consider.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have published to that journal in the past in that area. It's not clear to me how best to get the word out, because that's really what I want to do, is get the word out so people can say, we really do want to investigate this. And oh, by the way, this is the way to get started, because there's such a huge ROI on these devices.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd be happy to help you brainstorm if you're interested.
Thank you. I do want to.
And I also noticed Brett Stacks from the Open Path Foundation joined. Hi, Brett.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for being late. This is not the way I wanted to start joining your group, and I got pulled into it last minute. I'm also under the weather, so I apologize for my voice. But just quick intro, and thanks again for the invite to this. I'm Brett Stacks. I'm the founder for Open Path Mobility Foundation, which is based in Leander. We are a nonprofit foundation that started out creating prosthetic leg covers, um, and we'll be expanding that to other prosthetic devices. But we also teamed up with a group called Make Good, which is out of Louisiana originally, and started delivering their toddler mobility trainers, which should not be called wheelchairs, but they're very similar in nature. And they are almost 100% 3D printed. It takes us about 2 weeks to make each one, and we are about to deliver our fourth one since January. So that's the primary uh, thing that we fulfill through the foundation, and really excited to see what I can learn from you guys.
Thank you, Brett. How do people get, because we like that you're in Texas and we're a Texas organization. We want to build up the Texas makers. So if someone was looking to get you to print one of these wheelchairs,
Mm-hmm.
how it would they get in touch with you just through this Open Path Mobility website? Is there a
That's one way. So Make Good actually started a national program, actually a global program. They have a website called 3dmobility.org. And on 3D Mobility, you can actually go out and see all of the TMTs that have been requested globally and the number of makers out there helping to fulfill these needs. Um, so anytime I get a direct request, I have handled some prior to becoming a partner with Make Good, but we always send them out there just to allow them to go through the proper channels. What's really nice about 3dmobility.org, besides the fact that it's done in full visibility of Make Good, is thank you, Shannon. We we can help update the family that's receiving these. We have direct access to them through their messaging portal. They can see progress updates on their chairs. I do 3D renderings to show them the color combo that I'm thinking for their child's wishes, and then they get status updates as we are done printing, in assembly, and all the way through to delivery.
nice?
So they
We
can
might
request
need
those chairs there. Sorry about that.
we might need you to come back next month and really go through the process for us, Brett, because
I
I
would love
think
to.
there's
Yeah.
because we're at the end of our time today, and so we'll set some time next month and have you lead us off with kind of the whole process on how it's working and how you got involved.
I'm happy to do that. I would love the opportunity to show you guys that, and get some feedback from you as well. And so what I'll do is I'll prep a presentation for that that's got videos and pictures and
Oh, we
links and
would
all
love that.
works.
Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
gonna put the Padlet link in the chat also. And Brett, most people here have it, but I want
Okay.
you to have it. Um, oops, it disappeared. Let me put that in real quick. Yeah, I
All
want
right.
you to
Well,
have that.
I appreciate that a lot. That was one of my questions actually, is make sure I have access to everything.
And then if you have any questions, you can reach out to Anna and myself and Nico. And then we want this to be a really collaborative. So we'll put your information in this Padlet also, as you see some of our other participants are there, because we want it to be where we can contact, like each of us has our own strengths and weaknesses. And so we want to make sure that when people have questions, they can reach out. Like Tom will bring something in. He's newer to our group that I couldn't bring. Likewise, Ken has that engineering background. So we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So after the meetings, we want to make sure that everyone has that ability to contact each other.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
All right. We'll let you finish off, Nico.
Right. Yeah, right. If that's it, our next meeting is going to be April 21st. As always, there are the links for call for proposals for Closing the Gap, our conference, Viva La Vida, and then the Texas Library Association room. So that's coming up as well. So, um, slide. We got our Padlets. Share links for the articles. And yes, Shannon's imaginary staying that
It's
she'll
not
build
imaginary, it's just a work in progress.
she'll build it at some point. So
Correct.
but yeah, if we're all moving together, success takes care of itself, paraphrasing a little bit. That's pretty much it. And call us for assistance. Yeah. Y'all have a great rest of your lunch, and see you at the next Tamales meeting in April.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you
We'll
for
hang out for just 1 second if anyone has
Thank
any
you.
questions, but we appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much, Brett.